When I stepped into my ex-wife's funeral, the laughter of the family cut through the air like a knife. They thought I was pathetic, an old man who had lost everything. But when the lawyer opened her will, their smiles faded and their eyes filled with fear. I knew it was only the beginning. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you are listening in the comments. I stepped into the church, and the air thickened with the scent of lilies and wax. The oak doors groaned shut behind me, sealing me in with the mourners. Their whispers sliced through the silence, sharp and deliberate, as their eyes locked onto me. My old suit hung loose on my frame, the cuffs frayed, a stark contrast to the tailored elegance of the crowd. I was David Reynolds, the ex-husband, the fool who dared show his face at Emma's funeral. Laughter rippled from the front pews. Liam Crow, Emma's brother, leaned toward a woman in a black velvet dress, his voice loud enough to carry. Look at him, shuffling in like a lost dog. His smirk gleamed under the stained glass light. Beside him, Sophia Wilson, Emma's best friend, covered her mouth, but her giggle escaped, bright and cruel. He probably thinks he's still family, she whispered, loud enough for the row behind to snicker. My hand slipped into my pocket, fingers brushing the crumpled letter from Emma. I hadn't opened it. Not yet. It was the last piece of her I had, and I wasn't ready to face whatever it held. I straightened my shoulders and moved down the aisle, each step heavier than the last. The cold marble floor sent a chill through my soles, grounding me in the moment. I was here for her, not them. David, you made it. Liam's voice boomed, dripping with mockery. He stood near the altar, his charcoal suit pristine, his tie a perfect knot. What, come to beg for scraps? The crowd hushed, but their eyes danced with amusement. Sophia sidled up, her pearl necklace glinting. Honestly, David, it's pathetic. You think Emma left you anything? Her lips curled, and a man beside her chuckled, sipping champagne from a flute. Champagne. At a funeral. I didn't answer. Words wouldn't change their minds. Instead, I kept walking toward the open casket, where Emma lay still, her face serene, untouched by the venom around her. My chest tightened. 20 years of marriage, countless sacrifices, and this was my reward, scorn from people I'd once called family. I pulled a single white rose from my jacket, its petals soft against my calloused fingers, and placed it beside her. A murmur rippled through the crowd, followed by another laugh, this one quieter, unsure. Always so dramatic, Sophia muttered, loud enough for me to hear. Liam clapped a hand on her shoulder, his grin wide. Remember when he lost everything in the divorce? Couldn't even keep that shack he calls a house. The words stung, each one a needle in an old wound. I'd given up my career, my dreams, to support Emma's ambitions, to bail out Liam's failed ventures, to endure Sophia's endless gossip. And for what? I turned, catching a glimpse of a man in a gray suit standing near the back. Emma's lawyer, Robert Klein. His eyes met mine, steady, unreadable, like he knew something I didn't. My pulse quickened. What was he waiting for? I forced my gaze away, back to the crowd, their faces a blur of smug satisfaction. They thought they'd won, that I was broken. They were wrong. The organ began to play, a low, mournful hymn, signaling the start of the service. I moved to a pew in the back, alone. Liam's voice carried over the music, recounting a story about Emma's better days, conveniently leaving out the years I'd spent nursing her through illness, the nights I'd sat by her hospital bed while he and Sophia partied. My fingers tightened around the letter again, its edges digging into my palm. As the priest spoke of eternal rest, I felt the weight of their laughter settle into my bones. It wasn't just grief I carried now, it was something sharper, colder. I'd spent years being the good man, the patient one. But patience had limits, and mine was gone. They'd mocked me for the last time. The service ended, and the crowd spilled toward the exit. Their voices rising in chatter. I stood, smoothing my jacket, and walked toward the doors. Outside, the spring air was damp, the sky heavy with clouds. I paused on the stone steps, the church looming behind me. My breath caught as I whispered to myself, "You'll see." My hand closed around the letter, its weight a promise. I didn't open that letter right away. I needed time to remember who I was before Emma, before the years blurred into a haze of loyalty and betrayal. My mind drifted back to a night a decade ago, in the glittering cage of her Greenwich estate. The memory was vivid, like a wound that never healed. The kitchen was warm, the air thick with the scent of rosemary and garlic. I stood at the counter, slicing carrots with precision, the knife's rhythm steadying my nerves. Emma's family was coming for dinner, and I'd spent hours preparing anything to keep the peace. The dining room buzzed with their voices, loud and entitled, as if the house belonged to them. Liam's complaints about his latest business flop carried through the open door. "Another bad deal," he groaned, as if it wasn't his fault. I glanced at Emma, hoping for a smile, a sign she saw my effort. She sat at the head of the table, her auburn hair catching the chandelier's light, but her eyes were distant. I offered her a glass of Pinot, and she waved it away without looking. "Not now, David," she murmured, her voice clipped. My hand froze mid-air, the rejection small but sharp. Liam swaggered into the kitchen, his shirt unbuttoned at the collar. "Smells decent," he said, eyeing the roasting lamb. "You're a regular housewife, aren't you?" He laughed, grabbing a bottle of bourbon from the counter. I forced a smile, ignoring the jab. I'd paid off his debts twice that year, funneled thousands into his ventures while he mocked me behind my back. "Dinner's almost ready," I said, keeping my tone even. He shrugged and wandered back to the table, already calling for Sophia. She was there, of course, perched like a queen in her silk blouse, her laughter bright and cutting. "David, you're too good to her," she called, her voice syrupy with false warmth. Like a loyal puppy, always at her side. The table erupted in chuckles, and I felt my face burn. I carried the platter to the dining room, the weight of it grounding me. Crystal glasses clinked, and the room glowed with wealth, marble floors, velvet drapes, a life I'd helped build. I turned down a promotion at the bank to manage Emma's finances, to give her the freedom to design mansions for the elite. Every choice I made was for her, for us. But as I set the lamb down, I caught Emma whispering to Liam, her hand shielding her mouth. "Something about money." My stomach twisted. What were they hiding? "David, sit," Emma said, her tone more command than invitation. I took my place, the chair creaking under me. Liam leaned forward, his eyes glinting. "You're lucky, you know. Most women wouldn't put up with a guy like you." Sophia smirked, twirling a lock of hair. "He's reliable, I'll give him that." "Not exactly exciting, though." Another laugh, this one colder. I tried to talk to Emma later, after the dishes were cleared and the guests had gone. She was in her study, papers scattered across her desk. "Is everything okay?" I asked, leaning against the doorframe. She didn't look up. "It's fine. Just business." Her voice was ice, and I knew better than to push. But as I turned to leave, I saw it, a letter with a lawyer's seal, half hidden under a folder. I reached for it, my fingers brushing the envelope, but Emma's hand shot out, snatching it away. "Don't," she snapped, her eyes flashing. She shoved it into a drawer and locked it. I stood there, stunned, the air heavy between us. I started, but she cut me off. "Go to bed, David." Her voice was final, a wall I couldn't climb. I left, the sting of her dismissal burning in my chest. That moment stayed with me, a crack in the foundation of our life. I didn't touch that letter again, not then. But after the funeral, everything changed. I met her, a woman who knew more than I did. The rain came down in sheets as I ducked into a cafe, the bell above the door jingling softly. My shoes squeaked on the wooden floor, and I shook the water from my jacket, the chill from the funeral still clinging to me. The cafe smelled of fresh bread and coffee, a warmth that felt foreign after the church's cold marble. I slid into a booth, my hands trembling as I fumbled for my wallet. The letter in my pocket felt heavier now, its words still unread. "Rough day?" A voice broke through my haze. A woman sat at the next table, her silver hair pulled into a loose bun, her eyes sharp but kind. She held a steaming mug, and a worn notebook lay open before her, its pages crowded with handwriting. I nodded, not trusting my voice. "Let me get that," she said, gesturing to the waitress as I struggled to find cash. "Coffee's on me." I hesitated, then murmured, Thanks. The waitress set a mug in front of me, its heat seeping into my palms. I took a sip, but my hand shook, and a drop spilled onto the table. The woman slid a napkin across, her movements calm, deliberate. "You're David, aren't you?" she said, her voice low, like she was sharing a secret. I froze, the mug halfway to my lips. "How do you know my name?" My tone was sharper than I meant, but she didn't flinch. Instead, she smiled, a glint of amusement in her eyes. "I was at the funeral. Saw how they treated you. Liam and Sophia, they're not as clever as they think." Her words hit like a spark, igniting something in me. I leaned forward, studying her. "Who was she?" "I'm Clara Mason," she said, as if reading my mind. "Used to be a journalist. Knew Emma, back when she was still designing." She paused, her gaze steady. "I'm sorry for what they did to you in there. They're wrong about you, David." Her sincerity caught me off guard, a lifeline in a sea of scorn. I wanted to trust her, but years of betrayal had made me cautious. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice low. She leaned back, tapping her pen against her notebook. "Nothing. Just thought you looked like someone who could use a friend." She reached into her bag and pulled out a photograph, sliding it across the table. It was Emma, younger, laughing, her arm around a man I didn't recognize. "Ever seen him?" Clara asked, watching me closely. I stared at the photo, my pulse quickening. The man's face was unfamiliar, his features blurred by time or bad lighting. "No," I said, pushing it back. "Who is he?" Clara didn't answer right away. She tucked the photo away, her expression unreadable. "Someone Emma knew. That's all I'll say for now." The cafe buzzed around us, clinking cups, soft chatter, the hiss of the espresso machine. I glanced at Clara's notebook, its pages filled with names, dates, questions. She caught me looking and closed it with a snap. "Old habits," she said, her smile wry. "I like answers. And I think you do too." I told her about the funeral, the laughter, the way Liam's words had cut deeper than I'd expected. I didn't mention the letter, it felt too private, too raw. Clara listened, her eyes never leaving mine, and for the first time in years, I felt seen. "They think you're weak," she said when I finished. "That's their mistake. You're not the man they describe." The rain slowed outside, the windows streaked with droplets. Clara leaned forward, her voice dropping. "Meet me tomorrow. I'll tell you more about Emma, things you deserve to know." She scribbled an address on a napkin and pushed it toward me. "No pressure, David. But I think you're ready for the truth." I left the cafe, the napkin clutched in my hand, the cool air a shock after the warmth inside. Clara's words echoed in my mind, mingling with the image of that photograph. For the first time in years, I felt a spark of hope, a sense that I wasn't alone. I didn't sleep that night. Thoughts of Clara and that stranger's face kept me awake. The night stretched on, and I couldn't shake the image of that photograph Clara showed me. It knotted me, a loose thread in the fabric of my past. I sat at my kitchen table, the bulb overhead casting a weak glow over stacks of old financial records. Liam's name appeared too often, loans I'd covered, deals I'd salvaged. My fingers traced the numbers, each one a reminder of his betrayal. A photograph of Emma sat on the table's edge. Her smile frozen in time. I flipped it face down. No distractions. My phone buzzed, shattering the silence. Clara's name lit up the screen. "David, I found something," she said, her voice low, urgent. "Meet me at the library in an hour." I grabbed my coat, the air outside sharp with the scent of rain-soaked grass. My house was small, the paint peeling, a far cry from Emma's mansion. But it was mine, and it was enough. The Greenwich Library was quiet, its shelves heavy with the musty smell of old books. Clara waited in a corner, a folder in her hands, her eyes scanning the room like a hawk. "Look at this," she said, sliding the folder toward me. Bank statements, emails, transactions, all tied to Liam. He was siphoning money from Emma's accounts for years, she whispered. Offshore accounts, fake invoices. Sloppy, but effective. I leaned closer, my pulse quickening. He thought no one would notice, I said, scanning a transfer dated just before our divorce. We can use this. Clara nodded, a glint in her eye. We'll start small. Rattle his cage. We spent the next hour plotting, our voices hushed. The plan was simple: leak just enough to stir rumors, not enough to expose our hand. Liam's ego was his weakness, he'd crumble under scrutiny. Liam's not the only one, I said, tapping the table. Sophia's next. Any ideas? Clara smirked. She's obsessed with her image. We'll find a way. Her confidence steadied me, but doubt lingered. Was I crossing a line? I pushed the thought aside. They'd crossed lines first. That afternoon, I mailed an anonymous package to the Greenwich Business Club, where Liam pitched his latest ventures. Inside were copies of 2 damning invoices, enough to spark whispers among his investors. I used a public mailbox, my cap pulled low, the spring breeze cool against my neck. It felt good to act, to strike back. Across town, Liam sat in his glass-walled office, the city's elite buzzing around him. His phone rang, and I could imagine his face red, veins bulging, as his biggest investor pulled out. What do you mean, concerns? He barked, his voice echoing through the speaker. Who's spreading this garbage? He slammed the phone down, his pen snapping in his grip. He paced, glancing out the window, as if he could see me watching. I wasn't there, but I felt his panic, sharp and satisfying. Clara called later, her voice bright. It worked. The club's buzzing with gossip. Liam's scrambling. I smiled, the first real one in weeks. But Sophia was still untouched, her laughter from the funeral echoing in my mind. I'd deal with her soon. I walked home as dusk settled, the streets of Greenwich alive with blooming dogwoods and distant car horns. My house came into view, its sagging porch a testament to years of neglect. I unlocked the door, my steps light with purpose. Then I froze. A car crept past, its headlights dim, lingering too long. I slipped behind the curtain, my heart pounding, and watched it disappear down the street. Someone was watching. Sleep didn't come that night. The memory of that car's slow crawl past my house kept me on edge, my eyes fixed on the ceiling. By dawn, I was up, the air in my house stale, the floor creaking under my steps. A sharp knock at the door jolted me. I peered through the peephole, a mail carrier, his cap askew. I opened the door, and he handed me a newspaper, its front page marked with a red circle around an article about Liam's questionable dealings. Someone had sent it to me. A warning? A taunt? I tucked it under my arm, my gaze darting to the street. That same car was there, parked across the road, its driver hidden behind tinted glass. I slipped a pocket knife into my jacket, not to use, but for comfort, a small shield against the unknown. I left through the back door, cutting through the neighbor's yard, the grass damp underfoot. Greenwich's streets were waking up, delivery trucks rumbling, joggers passing with earbuds in. I kept my head down, weaving through side alleys to the library. If someone was following, I'd make it hard. In a smoky office across town, Liam leaned over a desk cluttered with coffee cups and files. His tie was loose, his hair disheveled. I want dirt on David Reynolds, he snapped at the man across from him. A private detective named Hargrove. The detective's leather chair creaked as he shifted, his camera resting on the desk. He's behind this, I know it. Find something to bury him. Hargrove nodded, his voice calm. He's careful, but everyone's got secrets. I'll dig. I reached the library, its quiet a stark contrast to the chaos in my head. Clara was already there, her notebook open, her pen tapping rhythmically. You look like you've seen a ghost, she said, sliding a chair out for me. I told her about the car, the newspaper. Liam's onto us, I said, keeping my voice low. We need to be smarter. She nodded, unfazed. Let him squirm. We've got more on him. I'd noticed a man lingering outside the library, his camera barely hidden under his coat. Hargrove. I led Clara out through a side exit, doubling back through a park to lose him. The air was thick with the scent of blooming lilacs, but my nerves were raw. Back at my house that evening, I found signs of intrusion: a lamp tipped over, papers scattered. Hargrove had been here, searching. He'd found nothing but old letters from Emma, useless to him. Still, the violation burned. I called Clara from a burner phone, my voice steady despite the knot in my chest. "They're in my house now. We need to move faster." She agreed, her tone sharp. "I've got a contact at the local paper. We'll escalate." I hung up, the weight of her words grounding me. Liam thought he could scare me off. He was wrong. As I locked the doors, I found a note in my mailbox, slipped in without a stamp. "You're playing with fire," it read, the handwriting sharp, angry. I crumpled it in my fist, my mind racing back to the moment this all began, the day Emma walked away, the day I lost everything. The note wasn't just a threat. It was a challenge. The note's words burned in my mind, pulling me back to a day I tried to forget. 10 years ago, the Greenwich estate was still my home, its marble floors and soaring ceilings a monument to the life I'd built with Emma. I came home early that day, my briefcase heavy with work I'd neglected. The air smelled of her perfume, floral and sharp, but the house felt wrong, too quiet, too still. I found Emma in the study, her back to me, her voice low as she spoke to a man in a crisp suit. Her lawyer. Papers were spread across the desk, their edges curling. "It's over, David," she said without turning, her tone flat, final. "I want a divorce." The words hit like a fist, stealing my breath. I stood frozen, the room tilting around me. The contract lay on the table, her signature already scrawled across it. Mine was missing. "Emma, can we talk?" I asked, my voice cracking. She glanced over her shoulder, her eyes cold. "There's nothing to say." The lawyer gathered his papers, avoiding my gaze, and left us alone. I stepped closer, desperate. "After everything, 20 years, the sacrifices, why now?" Before she could answer, the front door swung open. Liam strode in, his boots loud against the floor, Sophia trailing behind in a fur-trimmed coat. "About time you faced reality, David," Liam said, his grin sharp. "You've been dragging her down for years." Sophia's laugh was soft, venomous. "A burden, really? Emma deserves better." Their words cut deeper than Emma's silence, each one a betrayal I hadn't seen coming. I tried to pull Emma aside, my hand brushing her arm. She flinched, stepping back. "Don't," she said, her voice ablade. Liam clapped a hand on her shoulder, his eyes gleaming. "You heard her. Time to go." Sophia adjusted her scarf, her smile smug. "Honestly, David, did you think you'd keep up with her forever?" I packed that night, my hands shaking as I folded shirts into a suitcase. Liam's taunts echoed from the living room, where he and Sophia sipped wine, celebrating my exit. Emma stayed in her study, the door closed. I wanted to fight, to demand answers, but pride held me back. I wouldn't beg. The next day, in the lawyer's office, I signed the papers. The room was sterile, leather chairs, a ticking clock, the faint hum of traffic outside. I waved my claim to the house, the accounts, everything. "You're sure?" the lawyer asked, his brow furrowed. I nodded, my jaw tight. I'd walk away with nothing but my dignity. As I left, I saw Emma in the hallway, slipping a familiar letter, its seal unmistakable, into her purse. Our eyes met for a moment, and I thought I saw a flicker of regret. Then she turned away, and I was alone. I slipped my wedding ring into my pocket, its weight a reminder of what I'd lost, and walked into the spring light. The weight of that USB drive in my pocket felt like a loaded gun. I sat in my dim living room, the laptop's glow casting shadows across the worn floorboards. My fingers hovered over the keys, drafting an email to the Greenwich Country Club's gossip columnist. "Sophia Wilson's tied to a shady art dealer," I typed, keeping it vague but sharp. Names, dates, a hint of fraud enough to spark whispers. Clara had already planted seeds at a charity lunch, her voice low as she fed the rumor mill. My phone buzzed with her update, "They're eating it up. Sophia's name is mud." A photo of Sophia flickered on my screen, her smile polished at some gala, hiding the rot beneath. I crumpled a napkin from the club, its logo a reminder of the night she'd mocked me in front of Emma's friends, her laughter slicing through the chatter. That was then. Now, I was rewriting the story. I hit send, the email vanishing into the ether. My heart raced, a mix of thrill and dread. Was I going too far? I pushed the thought away. Sophia had built her throne on lies, I was just exposing the cracks. The air in my house was stale, the lamp flickering as I leaned back, waiting for the fallout. Across town, Sophia sat at the country club, her brunch table adorned with crystal and linen. The clink of champagne glasses filled the air, but the mood shifted. A woman nearby whispered, "Did you hear about Sophia's art deals?" Not exactly above board. Another guest excused herself, avoiding Sophia's gaze. Her fork froze mid-air, her manicured nails tapping the table. She scanned the room, her usual charm faltering as members drifted away. By the time she cornered Liam in the lounge, her voice was a hiss. "This is your fault. You said David was harmless." Liam slouched in a leather chair, swirling his scotch. "Calm down, Sophia. It's just talk. I'll fix it." His nonchalance only fueled her panic. She straightened, smoothing her dress, but her eyes betrayed her wide, darting, like a cornered animal. "I met Clara at a coffee shop, the air thick with espresso and rain." She slid a USB drive across the table, her smirk sly. "Emails between Sophia and that dealer. Forged provenances, inflated prices. Leak these to her book club, and she's done." I nodded, my fingers brushing the drive. "We're close," I said, but my voice wavered. The thrill of revenge was intoxicating, yet a voice whispered, "What are you becoming?" Clara caught my hesitation. "Don't go soft now, David. She'd bury you without a second thought." We mapped out the next steps, our voices low under the hum of the coffee machine. Sophia's world was image, her charity boards, her luncheons, her status. One crack, and it would all collapse. I remembered Sophia's sneer years ago, when Emma sidelined me at a family dinner, her laughter echoing as I sat silent. That memory fueled me now. At the club, Sophia stood alone in the powder room, staring at her reflection in a gilded mirror. Her lipstick was flawless, but her hands trembled. She dialed a friend, her voice syrupy. "Those rumors? Total nonsense." The friend cut her off. "We're concerned, Sophia. Maybe take a step back." The line went dead. Sophia gripped the sink, her breath shallow, her empire slipping. I walked home as the sky darkened, the Greenwich streets quiet except for the rustle of leaves. The USB drive was a promise, a weapon. But as I reached my porch, my phone lit up with a text from an unknown number, "You're not as clever as you think." My pulse hammered. I scanned the street, the shadows deeper now, and slipped inside, locking the door behind me. That night, I couldn't shake the feeling that Sophia was watching me. The text had rattled me, its words looping in my mind. By morning, my phone was a war zone, emails from old colleagues, neighbors, even a distant cousin, all asking if I was okay. I opened the community forum and saw Sophia's post. "David Reynolds is harassing me, driven by bitterness. He's unstable." My stomach twisted. She'd painted me as a villain, and Greenwich was eating it up. I sat at my kitchen table, a cracked coffee mug, Emma's last gift, cold in my hands. Sophia's lies were clever, weaving truth with fiction. I slammed my laptop shut, the sound sharp in the quiet house. I wouldn't let her win. Not again. Her sneer from years ago, when I'd offered to help Emma during her illness, flashed in my mind. She'd called me pathetic then. Now, she'd pay for it. At the community center, Sophia played her part to perfection. She stood before a crowd, her eyes glistening with practiced tears, clutching forged letters she claimed I'd sent. "He's unhinged," she said, her voice breaking. "I'm scared for my safety." The room murmured, heads nodding. A woman in the front row whispered, "We always knew David was trouble." Liam leaned against a wall, his smirk barely hidden, savoring the show. The polished wood floors gleamed under the lights, a cruel contrast to the venom in the air. I slipped into the library to meet Clara, my cap pulled low. The air was musty, the shelves a maze of silence. Clara was at a corner table, her notebook open, her pen scratching furiously. "Sophia's post is everywhere," she said, sliding her phone toward me. The comments were brutal, people I'd known for years calling me a creep, a loser. "She's good," Clara admitted, "but we're better. Those letters are fake. We'll prove it." We huddled over her laptop, brainstorming. "We need a handwriting expert," I said, my voice steady despite the weight in my chest. "Someone discreet." Clara nodded, jotting a name. "I know a guy. But we've got to move fast, Sophia's turning the town against you." I felt the walls closing in, the library's dim light suffocating. Greenwich, once my home, was now a battlefield. Back at my house, I found a note slipped under the door: "Stay away from us." My neighbor's handwriting, once friendly, now cold. I crumpled it, the loneliness hitting like a wave. My phone rang. "Clara. Don't let this break you," she said, her voice firm. "We're close to cracking Sophia's facade." Her words were a lifeline, pulling me back from the edge. I paced my living room, the creaking stairs echoing my unease. The town's judgment stung, but I'd faced worse: Emma's betrayal, Liam's taunts. I wouldn't fold. As I sat to plan our next move, Clara texted a photo, an old letter from Emma, found in a library archive. My hand shook as I zoomed in on her handwriting, the loops and curls achingly familiar. It wasn't just a note, it was something more. That letter changed everything. I met Clara at her apartment, a cluttered haven of books and papers, the air warm with the scent of herbal tea. She spread 3 letters across her desk, each in Emma's handwriting, their edges yellowed with time. I picked one up, and a faded rose petal slipped out, pressed years ago by her hand. My throat tightened. "Read them," Clara said, her voice soft, almost reverent. Emma's words were a confession. "I failed you, David," she wrote. "I let Liam's greed and Sophia's envy blind me." She described knowing their schemes, Liam's theft, Sophia's manipulations, but feeling trapped, too weak to act. "I left you a gift," one letter said, "to make things right." No details, just a promise. I traced her signature, torn between rage and grief. Was this enough to forgive her? Clara watched me, her eyes steady. "She was sorry, David." "Does that change anything?" I set the letter down, my voice low. "I don't know. But I can't stop now." The guilt was there, a shadow on my resolve, but Liam and Sophia hadn't earned my mercy. I remembered nursing Emma through a fever, only for her to dismiss me days later. Her remorse was real, but so was my pain. I drove to Emma's old estate, now empty, its garden overgrown with weeds. The windows were dark, the air heavy with dust and memory. I walked the halls, my steps echoing, flashes of our life hitting me, her laugh, our fights, the silence that grew between us. Standing in her study, I saw us arguing over Liam's debts, her eyes avoiding mine. Could I let go of this fight, knowing she'd regretted it? Clara's voice echoed in my head: "Focus on justice, not hate." Back at Clara's, we pored over the letters again. "This gift, it's tied to her will," I said, my mind racing. Clara nodded, sipping her tea. "She hid it well. Liam and Sophia don't know." The realization sharpened my focus, but the weight of Emma's words lingered. Was I avenging her, or myself? At home, I sat by my window, rain streaking the glass. The letters lay on my table, their secrets pulling me in 2 directions. I reread her apology, her plea for forgiveness, and felt a crack in my armor. But Liam's smug face at the funeral, Sophia's lies in the forum, they fueled me. Justice wasn't just for me. It was for the man I'd been, the one they'd broken. Clara called as I stared at the rain, her voice urgent. "I found someone who knows about Emma's will. Meet me tomorrow at the old diner on Main." I grabbed my coat, my heart pounding, the letters still open on my table. The rain didn't stop as I headed out, the night swallowing my steps. Whatever Emma hid, I was close to finding it. The rain had stopped, but the air was heavy as I hurried through Greenwich Park, my notebook clutched tight. Clara's text burned in my mind, a contact with answers about Emma's will. I spotted her on a bench, a folder in her lap, its corner stained with coffee, like it had seen countless secrets. She looked up, her eyes sharp. "We're close, David," she said, her voice low, steady. I sat beside her, the breeze carrying the scent of wet grass and blooming roses. My hand slipped into my pocket, fingers brushing the wedding ring I still carried. A reminder of what was, and what I was fighting for. Clara opened the folder, revealing notes from her contact, a paralegal who'd worked with Emma's lawyer. "The will's being read tomorrow," she said. "But Liam and Sophia are leaning on the lawyer, trying to twist things in their favor." Her smirk was grim. "They're desperate." I nodded, my jaw tight. Then we hit harder. We mapped it out, an envelope of Liam's offshore account records, emails showing his fraud, sent straight to the lawyer's desk. It wasn't blackmail, just truth, sharpened to cut. "Liam thinks he can buy anyone," Clara said, her tone dry. "But this lawyer's old school. He won't budge." I met her gaze, doubt flickering. "If we misstep, Clara, they'll crush us." She leaned closer. "We won't." The park was quiet, save for the rustle of leaves and distant dog barks. I felt the weight of the moment, the edge we were dancing on. Years of being the quiet one, the overlooked one, had led here. I remembered Emma's promise, years ago, to make things right. She'd failed then, but maybe her will was her redemption. Later, I sat in the lawyer's office, the air thick with the scent of leather and ink. Robert Klein, Emma's attorney, shuffled our documents, his glasses slipping down his nose. His fingers twitched, betraying nerves. "These are compelling," he said, his voice careful. "The will has a surprise, Mr. Reynolds." Emma was thorough. He wouldn't say more, but his eyes held a glint of respect. My pulse quickened. What had she done? Back home, my phone rang as I unlocked the door. Liam's name flashed on the screen. I answered, bracing myself. "Back off, David," he growled, his voice raw, unsteady. "Or I'll make sure you regret it." I let the silence stretch, then said, "You're scared, aren't you?" He hung up, but I heard the fear beneath his rage. My house was dim, the floor creaking under my steps, but I felt alive, electric. I sat at my table, Emma's letter open before me, her words a faint echo, "You deserve the truth." Tomorrow would prove it. Clara's text came as I stared at the page, "Tomorrow. Be ready." I stood, my heart pounding, the ring heavy in my pocket. I stepped outside, the night air cool against my face, and locked the door behind me. The next morning, I stepped into the lawyer's office, the air thick with tension. The room was packed, Greenwich's elite, their whispers sharp, their eyes darting between me, Liam, and Sophia. I took a seat in the back, my hands steady despite the pulse hammering in my chest. Liam sat up front, his jaw tight, sweat beading on his forehead. Sophia, in a tailored blazer, gripped her purse, her knuckles white. The lawyer, Robert Klein, stood at a mahogany desk, Emma's fountain pen glinting beside the will. I clutched her letter in my pocket, its words my anchor, "You deserve the truth." The silence was oppressive, broken only by the tick of a wall clock. Klein cleared his throat, his voice cutting through the room. "Emma Crow's will is clear," he began, unfolding the document. "She left explicit instructions, and evidence, to ensure her wishes are honored." The room stilled as he read. "The estate, the accounts, the investments, all to me." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Liam's chair scraped back, his face red. "That's impossible," he shouted. Sophia's voice cracked, shrill. "It's a lie. She wouldn't." Klein raised a hand, unmoved. "Emma also provided proof, documents exposing Liam Crow's financial fraud and Sophia Wilson's deceit. They're public now." The guests froze, their murmurs dying. Liam lunged forward, knocking a chair aside. "You'll pay, David," he snarled, but his voice shook, hollow. Sophia stood, her charm shattered, pleading to the crowd. "This is a mistake. I was her friend." No one met her eyes. The room turned cold, their judgment swift. I sat still, my heart thundering, a strange calm settling over me. Emma's words echoed. Her will wasn't just money, it was justice. Klein continued, detailing how Emma had tracked Liam's theft and Sophia's lies, her evidence meticulous, hidden until now. I remembered her late nights in her study, the sealed letter I'd glimpsed. She'd been planning this, even as she pushed me away. The crowd shifted, some glancing at me with newfound respect, others with envy. Sophia's face crumpled, her hands trembling as she sank back into her seat. Liam stormed out, the door slamming behind him. Sophia tried to follow, but her heels caught, and she stumbled, alone. I stood, my gaze meeting Klein's. He nodded slightly, a silent acknowledgement. The victory was mine, but it felt heavy, layered with Emma's regret and my own scars. I thought of Sophia's sneer years ago, when I'd begged her to help Emma during her illness. She'd laughed. Now, she was the one broken. I left the office, the summer air warm against my skin. Clara waited outside, her eyes bright. You did it, she said, her voice soft but proud. I handed her the will's copy, my fingers brushing hers. A weight lifted, but questions lingered. What now? I nodded, stepping into the sunlight, feeling lighter than I had in years. That night, I didn't sleep. The will's pages lay open on my table, Emma's words mingling with thoughts of what came next. I stood in her estate the next morning, its vast rooms no longer a cage but a canvas. Sunlight spilled across the parquet, the air fresh with paint and possibility. I'd decided, the mansion would become a charity center, a place for those Greenwich forgot. Clara arrived, a stack of papers in hand, her smile warm. The Emma Reynolds Foundation, she said, spreading out forms. Let's make it official. A vase sat on the windowsill, Emma's favorite, its curves catching the light. I kept it there, a quiet nod to her. I opened a window, the breeze sweeping out years of pain. Emma had dreamed of helping others, a wish she'd whispered in our early days, before ambition and betrayal took hold. This was her legacy, and mine. Liam was gone, his business gutted by the truth. Word spread he'd left Greenwich, his name poison among the elite. Sophia's house was on the market, her calls to old friends unanswered. The society she'd ruled had turned its back, her charm no match for Emma's evidence. I didn't gloat. Their fall was enough. I threw myself into the center's launch, organizing volunteers, signing grants. Locals who'd once shunned me now offered handshakes, their smiles cautious but real. At the opening, a young volunteer thanked me, her story of struggle echoing my own years of being unseen. I nodded, my throat tight, and handed her a flyer for the center's first program. Clara and I walked through Greenwich Park one evening, the trees heavy with late spring blooms. Children laughed nearby, their voices light. They thought they were untouchable, Clara said. Her tone playful but proud. Look at them now. I smiled, the ring still in my pocket, its weight familiar. Justice finds a way, I said, my voice soft. She nudged my shoulder. So do you. We planned new projects, a literacy program, a job fair, her humor cutting through my doubts. She'd become more than an ally, her presence a steady anchor. I remembered Emma's laughter in this park, how it faded over time. Clara's was different, grounded, real. Greenwich felt like home again, not because of wealth, but because of purpose. Back at the estate, I set the ring on a table, its gold dull in the fading light. It wasn't surrender, but release. Clara called from the park, her voice bright. Come on, we're not done yet. I grabbed my jacket, the evening air cool as I stepped out. The sun dipped low, painting the sky gold, and I walked toward her, my steps sure. I didn't know what lay ahead, but for the first time in years, I wasn't afraid. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.